Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Without further ado, let's jump into today's top stories. Ask me to slow down while driving through my neighborhood? Okay. I live in a very quiet suburban neighborhood with lots of active neighbors. Joggers, bikers, dog walkers, baby strollers, kids playing with balls in the streets, etc. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour, but when I see lots of foot traffic on the sidewalks, I bring it down to a crisp 15 or even 10 miles per hour if I see a big group of kids playing in the streets. There's this sweet group of kids who will play basketball in the middle of the street 8 doors down from my home. When they see cars approaching, they move to the curb and wait for the cars to pass before resuming their game. One day, I was driving home from work and I saw the kids out playing, and their mother was on the front lawn talking with another adult. I slowed down to 10 miles per hour and went the complete opposite side of the street as I crept by. A little while later, she knocked on my door and complained about how fast I was driving, and said that I could have harmed her precious little children. I said the speed limit's 25 and I was only going 10 miles per hour. How much slower did you want me to go? She says, "I don't care, just slow down or else I'm going to call the police. I have a doorbell camera so I can see every time you drive by." Okay, crazy lady, whatever you say. The next day, the kids were outside playing in the street again. I slowly approached, came to a full stop, and then took my foot off the brakes and let the car crawl at 1 mile per hour. The kids stared at me, super confused, as it took me an entire minute to pass through their makeshift basketball court. I continued to do this a few more times until one day the mother came and knocked on my car window as I was crawling by. I lowered my window and asked if there was a problem. She said, "Why are you going so slow? Are you stalking my children?" I said, "No, of course not. You demanded I slow down, so I am." I rolled up my window and went on my merry way. She comes banging on my door again and says, "Don't get smart with me. Now you're going too slow." And I said, "Are you saying that going 10 miles per hour is okay now? Because if you don't like it, you can call the police." She huffed and crossed her arms and stomped off my porch. A literal ton of salt. I was recently reminded of an incident in my youth when I worked for a large Canadian big box store known for having its own currency. If you're Canadian or have been to Canada, you know the one. For the most part, a decent place to work. Got my first aid/AED certificate, as well as my forklift license at 16 through them. Being the youngest licensed operator on staff who was also not in a management position meant I was largely the go-to person for grabbing things with the forklift. However, I was not given my own key. So, one cold and blustery December, right before Christmas, the customer service manager needed me to move a pallet of water softener salt from the back dock to the front of the store. It would sit right outside of the entrance. 12 kg bags, 10 to a row, 10 rows high. Not too hard to do on flat ground, just needs a bit of a jerk to get it moving, and provided you don't have to stop. The weight keeps it moving on its own with little force. However, they were not in the warehouse dock, but outside to make it easier for the forklift to pick them up and move them round front. The customer service manager was not trained on the forklift and didn't have a key, and for some reason on that busy day before Christmas, neither did anyone else in the store. Fact I tried to explain, but was told to just get it done. Now the exterior of the dock is one of those that slopes down so the truck can be level with the floor to make it easier to offload and move stock to the floor. Naturally, the salt pallets were next to the store's exterior wall, and we didn't have a power jack, just the regular old hand carts. There's a trick to moving heavy loads uphill. Don't try and pull it straight up. Make small incremental zigzags, 6 to 12 inches to one side at a time, slowly walking it up the hill. An hour and a half later, it was at the front door of the store. The customer service manager was, needless to say, extremely angry that the only person who was covering the warehouse for the entire store had disappeared for an hour and a half and demanded to know why I hadn't just used the forklift. I replied that no one in the store had the key, she had told me to just get it done, and that it was now legally time for my entitled 15 minutes of break. The next day, I was given my own key to the forklift, and all management was required to go to forklift training. The contract says you have to paint the walls before leaving. My parents had a loud argument about public spaces in a residential meeting with their landlord. He lived in and owned 5 apartments in the building. That landlord later made some excuse to terminate the contract and made a power play to make my parents repaint the apartment before leaving. My dad got pissed off and my mom got clever, so she thought the contract doesn't say which color, and the entire apartment was painted pitch black, ceilings and all. I remember sitting there as a kid not really understanding what was going on, but I have to say it was really cool to be there with just one light on that final night as we were clearing out. I don't know much about the fallout, but that day they showed my brother and me how to properly give a one final "fuck you, buddy" to a person. I called my patient's mistress, but I was just doing what I was told. This happened back in 2009. I was working part-time at a doctor's office while I was in nursing school. I was one of the receptionists and did all of the filing and cataloging and such. It was boring work, but the doctor, my boss, guaranteed me a job after nursing school, so that's why I did it. This particular doctor was an orthopedic surgeon. We had lots of patients coming in for MRIs, CT scans, and X-rays. This one particular patient, Frank, was scheduled to have surgery in a couple of days, and he needed to come and pick up his MRIs and X-rays from our office and bring them with him to his procedure. Yes, looking back at how ass backwards things used to be is very frustrating. All these things are 100% electronic now, and even back then they were too, but my boss was old school. So anyway, I called Frank to tell him to come pick up his images, but he didn't answer. I called him again during lunch, but still no answer, so I left him a message. The following day, I called him again, but still no answer. It was imperative that Frank got his images or else he wouldn't be able to have his surgery. So I looked in his file to see if he had any other contact info. He listed his home phone number as well as his wife's cell. I called his house and left a message, and I also called his wife, Amy, but she didn't answer either, so I left her a message. The office manager, Diane, told me to just call whoever was listed in his emergency contacts, because if Frank didn't get his images and missed his surgery, then she'd have to do a whole new stack of paperwork to reschedule him, and she didn't want to be bothered. I looked to see if there was an emergency contact, and Frank listed a woman named Helen, relation to patient, girlfriend. I told Diane I didn't want to call Helen when I already left a message for Amy, as it would put me in an awkward position. Diane said that as long as the patient listed them as an emergency contact, I could call them. She also said that it's not uncommon for couples to be separated but still legally married for insurance reasons, and that this could possibly be the case for Frank and Amy, which I guess made sense. I really wanted to believe that no one would be stupid enough to put their secret lover as their emergency contact. I didn't want to get fired for being insubordinate, so I called Helen and she actually answered her phone. I was secretly hoping she wouldn't, and told her Frank's images needed to be picked up prior to his surgery. She came by during lunch, got the images, and then left. I immediately called Frank again and let him know that Helen picked up his images and not to worry about it. But this fool wasn't answering his phone, so I left him another message. A couple hours later, Amy called back and said she wasn't able to answer before because she was teaching, but she got our message and was coming to pick up Frank's images now that school was done for the day. I told her the images had already been picked up. I tried to be as vague as possible. Amy, who picked them up? I know Frank is still busy at his office and hasn't had the chance to get them. Me, again, trying really hard to be vague. We called someone from his emergency contact list. Was it his brother Steve? At this point, I'm really nervous. No, not his brother. Well, then who? Helen. Who is Helen? I don't know anyone named Helen. I'm not sure, but since she was on Frank's emergency contact list and no one else was answering their phone, we called her and she already came and got the images. Confused, Amy hung up. The following day was Frank's surgery. The day after Frank's surgery, my boss jokingly asked me, "What the hell did you do to that guy?" He came in all pissed at me, saying that my secretary told his wife about his other girlfriend. I told my boss what happened and that Diane told me to call the girlfriend, and he understood. Diane tried to throw me under the bus, saying I didn't tell her that Helen was Frank's girlfriend, and that I had told her Helen was just a friend, and that she never would have given me the green light to call a patient's mistress. But I reminded her in front of my boss that she had said it was possible for Frank and Amy to be married but separated. This bitch was trying to cover her ass because she probably thought it was some kind of HIPAA violation. But nothing ever happened. I was 18 years old at the time and just did whatever my supervisors told me to because I was really thirsty for a job after college, but I ended up not working there and went to work at a hospital instead. And there you have it, folks, the end of the epics. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like on the video as well as subscribe with notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name is Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.